History is often stranger than fiction, but sometimes fiction itself becomes history. Today, we're diving into myth versus reality, uncovering famous historical legends. We'll explore some of the most famous legends that have shaped our understanding of the past and reveal the truth behind them. Stick around because the final legend will blow your mind with how different the reality is from the myth you know. And hey, if you love separating fact from fiction and exploring the hidden truths of history, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on more myth-busting content. Now let's uncover the legends. Robin Hood, the noble outlaw who stole from the rich and gave to the poor. We've all heard the tales of his adventures in Sherwood Forest, leading his band of merry men. But was he a real person or simply a legend born out of folklore? The myth. Robin Hood is often depicted as a heroic figure fighting against the tyranny of Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham, using his archery skills to right the wrongs of society. According to legend, he was a champion of the oppressed, a noble figure loyal to King Richard the Lionheart. The reality historical records suggest that the idea of Robin Hood may be a composite of several different figures. There were indeed outlaws in medieval England, and names similar to Robin Hood appeared frequently in court records as aliases for criminals. The character we know today likely evolved from these tales, shaped by ballads and stories passed down through generations. Question for you. Do you think a real Robin Hood would be remembered as a hero or a criminal in today's society? The Trojan War is one of the most legendary conflicts in ancient history, famously sparked by the abduction of Helen of Troy. But how much of this epic story told by Homer in the Iliad is actually true? The myth. The war supposedly began when Paris, the Prince of Troy, kidnapped Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, from her husband King Menelaus of Sparta. This led to a decade-long siege of Troy, culminating in the use of the cunning Trojan horse to finally breach the city's walls. The reality archaeologists have found evidence of a city that might have been Troy, and signs of a war that took place around the 12th or 13th century BCE. However, it's unlikely that the war was fought over love alone. Historians believe that economic and political factors like control over trade routes were more likely the cause of this legendary conflict. The Trojan horse, too, is debated, with some scholars suggesting it may have been a poetic metaphor rather than a real military tactic. King Arthur is one of the most romanticized figures in history, but did the legendary king who wielded Excalibur and led the Knights of the Round Table ever truly exist? The myth. Arthur is often depicted as a great leader who united the British Isles, wielding the magical sword Excalibur and ruled from the mystical castle of Camelot. He was a just and noble king, guided by Merlin the wizard, and is said to have searched for the Holy Grail. The reality. There is little historical evidence to confirm that King Arthur was a real person. The earliest mentions of Arthur come from Welsh poetry and chronicles written centuries after the time he was said to have lived. Most historians agree that Arthur was likely a fusion of multiple historical and mythical figures, or possibly a symbolic representation of ideal kingship. The legends were greatly embellished by medieval writers like Geoffrey of Monmouth, who added the chivalric elements we associate with Arthur today. The story of Atlantis has fascinated explorers and dreamers for centuries. But was there ever really a lost city swallowed by the sea? The myth goes like this. Atlantis was a magnificent island civilization described by the philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. According to the myth, Atlantis was an advanced society that mysteriously sank into the ocean, lost to the world forever. The reality, however, is a bit different. Most historians and scholars believe that Atlantis was purely a creation of Plato's imagination, used as a philosophical allegory to illustrate the dangers of hubris and moral decay. While some believe the story may have been inspired by real events, like the volcanic destruction of the Minoan civilization on the island of Thera, which is modern-day Santorini, no definitive evidence of a sunken Atlantis has ever been found. So here's a question for you. Do you think Atlantis was based on a real place, or was it just a powerful story to teach a moral lesson? Chapter 5. The Fountain of Youth, Eternal Life or Eternal Myth. The Fountain of Youth is a tale as old as time, promising everlasting life to those who drink from its waters. But is there any truth behind this legendary quest? The myth explorers like Juan Ponce de Leon are often said to have searched for the fountain of youth in the New World, hoping to find the secret to eternal life. This mythical spring was believed to restore youth and vitality to anyone who drank from it. The reality. There is no evidence that Ponce de Leon actually searched for such a fountain. Historians believe the association between him and the Fountain of Youth was a story created decades after his death to romanticize his explorations. The real quest for youth is more likely a metaphor for humanity's age-old desire to find ways to extend life and health. Chapter 6. The Bermuda Triangle. Mystery or misunderstanding. The Bermuda Triangle has captivated imaginations with stories of ships and planes vanishing without a trace. But is there any substance to these claims, or is it all a big misunderstanding? The myth. The Bermuda Triangle, located in the North Atlantic Ocean, is said to be a cursed region where numerous vessels and aircraft have disappeared under mysterious circumstances, often attributed to supernatural forces or alien abductions. The reality science tells a different story. Many of the incidents in the Bermuda Triangle can be explained by natural phenomena such as human error, strong ocean currents, and unpredictable weather patterns. In fact, the number of disappearances in this area is not significantly higher than in any other heavily traveled region of the world's oceans. Chapter 7. Rasputin, the Mad Monk's Powers. Rasputin, the Russian mystic, is often portrayed as a man with supernatural powers who influenced the fate of the Romanov dynasty. But how much of his story is fact and how much is legend? The myth. Rasputin was believed to possess mystical healing abilities, having supposedly saved the Tsar's son from a near-fatal illness. Stories about his life and death include wild tales of his assassination, suggesting he was nearly impossible to kill. The reality. While Rasputin was indeed a close advisor to the Romanovs, his so-called healing powers were likely exaggerated. His influence was primarily political rather than mystical, and his reputation was built as much on rumors and sensationalism as on any real abilities. His murder, though dramatic, was more a product of political intrigue than supernatural resistance. Question for you: do you think Rasputin's story is more about his political power or his supposed mystical abilities? And there you have it. Myth versus reality for some of the most famous legends in history. It's amazing how these stories have evolved over time, blending fact and fiction into the tales we know today. If you enjoyed this journey through the legends of the past, don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell for more myth-busting adventures. Also, let us know in the comments which legends surprised you the most, or if there's another historical myth you'd like us to uncover in a future episode. Until next time, keep questioning everything, and remember, the truth is out there.